YouTube, how we doing? We're back with another mock draft. This time is going to be a two-person mock draft. I'm here with Landon of Bando Sports. If you haven't seen him on TikTok, I don't know what your For You page is looking like, but it's not looking like the right thing. But Landon, how you doing? Tell the people about yourself a little bit.
I'm good, man. It's 1:30 in the morning, and we getting this mock draft in.
Pretty late. You're a fellow New York fan, just not the same team.
Yeah, New York Jets all the way.
So
I like the Giants though.
We got a couple picks here for us, right? It's already on the screen, top 10. So how we're gonna be doing it is we're gonna be going. I'm gonna get the odd picks because obviously 5 and 7 are the Giants, so it'd be good. Landon will get his evens, so he'll get his Jets picks, and it lines up pretty well. So we're just gonna go. We haven't prepared. We don't have a set draft order or anything. We're just gonna be looking at the picks, going and reacting through it, and just kind of seeing how it goes and how we end up at the end of the first round. How it looks. I know just from their mock draft on TikTok and my recent mock drafts, we definitely have a couple of different opinions on players we've been talking about, which made this pretty much a fun video to make. So, of course, like I said, go check them out. The link will be at the top of the description, and then we'll talk more about more of their links as well later on in the video. But yeah, for the first pick, Jacksonville Jaguars on the clock. Draft Network says offensive tackle, edge, and safety are the top needs, and if positional value wasn't a thing, honestly, Kyle Hamilton, I think, would be such a beast pick for them. But it is a thing. And I don't know where you stand on this. I think I do. But for me, I just don't think offensive tackle is the need for them. For simple fact of Evan Neal's not this like generational talent to me.
He's not generational, but I think he's the right pick. Just protecting Trevor Lawrence. That's all they got to do.
See, for me, I feel like they have a decent offensive line to where they can still add to it in the second round. But if they bring back Cam Robinson, I'd much rather them have Cam Robinson and a guy like who I'm going to take, which is Oregon's Kayvon Thibodeau. I'd much rather them have that too than have Evan Neal and stick with Kayvon Chason on the edge. Because Chason, you go back and watch my videos that year, I was not a fan of Chason. I regretfully was putting him in the first round just because people were forcing him in there, but I said, I just don't see it. I don't see it. He has not looked good in the NFL. But you get a guy in Thibodeau who has been the consensus first overall pick since he left high school. And I think people are just tired of saying that he's such a great player that we're trying to make him fall down boards to. I've seen some drafts where he's outside of the top 10, which is ridiculous. He's gonna be in the top 3. There's no doubt in my mind about it. And pairing him alongside Josh Allen, I mean, those are two just athletic freaks coming off the edge where you're going to have arguably one of the best pass rushing duos in the league, and they're young. So I think, yes, you do need to help out Trevor Lawrence and ETN, but one of the biggest things to help out a quarterback is allowing him to have some time on the sidelines to recoup. And that's what Thibodeau and Josh Allen are going to give him is they're going to be able to go out there, shut down the defense, and allow Lawrence to get back out there, get his run back. So that's where I have us starting off with this mock draft with KT going 1. So what you got for our lines?
Okay, for the Lions, I'm going to keep it short and simple. It's going to be Aiden Hutchinson. He's already in Michigan. You got to keep him there.
It's the feel good story. Like, it just feels right to keep him. But I mean, yeah, tell me about it. What makes you think edge for the Lions?
So when I was watching college football, I didn't really know of Aiden Hutchinson until like towards the end of the season. Mm-hmm. And I started seeing him get mocked, like the top 5 picks. And I'm like, hold up, my Jets got the 4th pick. Who's Aiden Hutchinson? So I look at his tape and it's nasty. Like it's good. And I'm like, who's this white guy doing this? Like this is like Nick Bosa 2.0.
Yeah.
That was my initial like thoughts when I was watching him. It was going to be Nick Bosa 2.0.
And I think that's the cool thing about Hutchinson versus Thibodeau. Is Thibodeau, people question, like, how much is he into it? How much is it? That's not a question with Hutchinson. Hutchinson has the high motor. He loves the game. His ceiling might not be too high, but his floor is. Like, the worst he's going to be is just a solid edge rusher.
I still think his ceiling's pretty high.
You do? Okay.
Yeah.
See, I don't think he can get to that Bosa level. I think that he'll always be like, I think like where Josh Allen is right now, I think that's kind of where he'll be, like where he's going to be great, but not necessarily like top 5. Like, I think he's just going to always be just a presence off the edge, just a high motor, like not going to give up kind of guy.
I feel like he could be like a Max Crosby type player who's just, he's always in the play, no matter what.
Exactly.
Like, he's always a factor.
I think it's a good comp, honestly.
Yeah.
I think with Thibodeau, if 2-3 years from now he's looking like the next Khalil Mack, I think that that's a possibility, but it just doesn't feel like that for Hutchinson. But I think that day one he's going to come out there and just play so great, which is why I think Hutchinson's a great pick for the Jags at 1-2, because you don't need him to be that superstar in Jacksonville. He can be that number 2 comfortably. Whereas when he goes to Detroit, he really would have to be that leader of the defense. But I mean, Detroit's just getting a nasty human being to be able to lead that defense. And never mind, dude, if he went to a school in Canada, I think that Dan Campbell would still love this guy's motor. Like it just seems like the right guy to be leading the defense. For
So
Houston,
I want to go back to pick 1 real quick. We were talking about pro comparisons. I don't know why, but I see a lot of Jadeveon Clowney and Kayvon Thibodeau.
And that's not the thing, is that it seems like a slight now because of how Clowney is. Currently, he's always iffy on how great is he. He's had some stints in certain places, and some have been good, some have been bad. But like young Clowney, like South Carolina coming out, and when he was healthy again with J.J. Watt, that's what I see it as. Is they already have a solidified edge rusher in Josh Allen, which the Texans had in J.J. Watt. Obviously, J.J. Watt's a lot better than Josh Allen right now, but Thibodeau just being able to hop in there, and I think that's what's great about it, is he has such a high ceiling, but you're not forcing him to go in there and, hey, you're the leader of this defense, you're our only hope on defense. Like, no, this is a pretty solid defense. They have good corners. Like, they got Shaquille Griffin, they got Josh Allen on the edge, they got Miles Jack in the middle. They have a lot of guys that are solid and young and developing and such. So for him to go in there and just be an additional piece, he can kind of make his own. And I think that's kind of what's cool about it. Houston's kind of weird, though, because no one knows what the hell this team is going to look like. They have so much cap space. They have probably a lot more picks than we're giving them credit for, because Deshaun Watson's probably going to get moved. I mean, if they can recoup the relationship with Watson, I think that'd be perfect. I'm a big fan of Lovie Smith in that hire. I just really like how they run their defense and such. So for him to be able to do that is awesome. For me, I've been in between a lot of things for Houston, because I think when it comes to teams like Houston, where it's not necessarily the same with Jacksonville and the Lions, Houston just kind of sucks, right? And that's not necessarily a slight to Houston, but it's not like, oh, we need an edge, we need a corner. It's like, you just need talent. You just need good.
They need every position. Yeah, they just need some blue chip play.
You just need players that are going to go out there and be better than who you have already on your roster. It doesn't matter what position. And I think the easy pick for me is a team that has a defensive-minded coach, has a GM who comes from the Patriots tree, who loves secondary, getting the best player in the class in Hamilton to lead that defense, because you just need talent. So, yeah, you could go and get an Evan Neal who has some boomer bust potential, or you can go, get a quarterback if you don't believe in Davis Mills like a Malik Willis, but just go get the best player on the board and just get some talent on your team. Houston fans have always struggled to get in the seats. You're looking like you're going back to being a bad team. You just need talent. Get some Hamilton jerseys sold, get somebody to at least be fun to watch, and start building that team up. And I think a guy like Hamilton is a purebred leader. I think that he comes in right away, and players are going to want to play for him and with him on the defensive side.
Okay, so I have Hamilton falling in my mock drafts.
You do?
That's just because of positional value.
Which is definitely a debate in the league, is, where does positional value cut off?
I think you stop worrying about positional value at like pick 10 or pick 8 or whatever.
I think for me, I think positional value definitely matters most when, teams like the Giants, where, you have a solid team, but you have a couple pieces. You might as well look at the positions that are going to be more valuable, because you need to keep that money. Houston has so much money. Houston has a bunch of assets. I just feel like at that point, you might as well get the best available person, because you don't want to draft somebody and pay them that money and then be a bust. But I've also been in that boat where sometimes talent's too high, and I think Kyle Hamilton's one of the best people I've ever scouted in my life, honestly. So that's why I think I think his positional value is falling to 3. Ironically, because I think talent wise, this was 2002. I think he's the first pick, but it's not. We're deep into the 2022 at this point. But you got.
It just gives me like, as a Jets fan, it just gives me like Jamal Adams. vibes. Just a safety in
That's
the
my thing
top
is
10.
do you think Jamal Adams wasn't worth that pick? Looking
Oh,
back on it.
100% he was worth that pick now because we flipped him into 2 first-round picks and a second-round
Agreed.
pick.
Agreed. That's where I'm at with the Giants, where Saquon was worth that pick. If you went pick 1 to the Browns, I don't think anyone would be questioning it. It's just the problem of what can happen after that. You know, injuries can do things and teams not protecting players and whatever it may be. But, you know, I think safety is a little bit different than, you know, running back or corner and stuff like that, where I think safety is a little bit safer because he's going to lead the defense. He's going to be able to help more than just on the field. And this is a guy who really can play free, strong linebacker, play a nickel. Again, just you need good football players if you're Houston. I think Kyle Hamilton is that. But your Jets are here on the clock. This is the first pick of 2 that we're going to see in this video, but first of 4 in the top 40. I mean, there's a lot of things you can do here. A lot of guys still on the board.
Okay, so with the Jets' first pick, the 4th pick, I'm going to go Evan Neal. I was debating between Ikem Ekwonu and Evan Neal, but Evan Neal seems like the better pick right here. Ikem, I'm not too sold on him yet, but I know Evan Neal is a product of Alabama.
Yeah, and he's been starting there for a while. Does it concern you at all? Did it concern you when Mekhi Becton got drafted, the size? And then do you have those same concerns for Evan Neal being 6'6", 360?
You know, Mekhi never was really injured at all. Like, he got injured literally the first game, and it was like a freak accident. Yeah. I don't see like these tall players having like much injury. Like, I get they're tall, they're big dudes. Like, they have the chance to get injured, but I don't see any injury concerns with any of them.
Gotcha. I mean, in reality, Evan Neal is kind of looked at as that best offensive lineman in the class. I mean, when you're able to play at Alabama for multiple years, that usually means that you're doing something right. And I think the good thing about Evan Neal too is with the questions around, you know, is George Fant going to be a starting tackle? Is Mekhi going to play a starting tackle role? You know, where's everyone going to line up? I think getting Evan Neal, you can line him up at guard if you need, or you can flip him over to right tackle, because he's done it all and he pretty much can play at any position. So I would, if this was the pick for the Jets on draft night, where would you project him starting to start the season?
Okay, so I would have Mekhi Becton at left tackle if he earns the position during the offseason, but for now I'm going to give it to him. Left guard's going to be AVT, center's going to be McGovern, and then I'm going to kick Evan Neal to right tackle and put Fant on the inside. I'm not sure how Fant is at guard. I know he's a good tackle, but I want to see what we have in Evan Neal at tackle first.
Do you think if Evan Neal ends up being the pick, do you think there's a possibility that Fant might get cut to save that $10 million and spend that elsewhere?
Yeah, 100%. I feel like he has a chance to get cut. 10 million is a lot. You can get a pretty decent player. You could get like a James Conner and a Justin Reed for that $10 million.
Even then, you could, if instead of trying to force him into guard, you can go out and go get a guard out in free agency, maybe fill up a hole, maybe bring back LVT as well while you're there. So yeah, there's a lot of things you can do here. Evan Neal going off the board, which could make Giants fans unhappy, which, you know, is never a good thing. But I think the good thing about the Giants is left tackle is not a problem, as I think personally, just being a Giants, I was a huge fan of Andrew Thomas coming into the draft. I had him at that pick going into it, and I got a lot of hate. Oh, Andrew Thomas at 4, that's crazy. He's looked every bit of worth that pick since then. Had a struggle the first year. He's hurt a little bit, but last year was, you knew when he wasn't on the field. But that doesn't change the fact that this team needs help. And when this team needs help, I'm going to go out and get a best offensive lineman in Ike Ekwonu. A lot of people also like to look at Charles Cross, which I totally get. He's a beast in pass blocking. But I think people are starting to forget that Saquon Barkley is the running back for this Giants team. I'm not too worried about pass blocking as much as I am run blocking. I want Saquon Barkley to be able to hit the holes and make the big plays like he was his rookie year. You know, Kenny Golladay is going to be able to make the contested catches. When Daniel Jones is healthy, he can extend the plays. Kadarius Toney is going to add a new element to this offense with Dable and Kafka. So pass blocking, as important as it is, Andrew Thomas is an amazing pass blocker. I'm going to go out there and get a guy who is still solid in pass blocking, but is really just an absolute monster in the run game. in worst case scenario, I have to put him at a guard position to where maybe him and Andrew Thomas are both starting next to each other. That'd be deadly. So I'm a big fan of Ike Ekwonu here. I think that his ability, 6'4", 320, playing tackle or guard, it sets up a lot of options there at pick 7, which is only obviously one pick away, to where you could even double up and get a Charles Cross if he's on the board. So there's a lot of different ways we can go. But first thing that's got to happen is the Panthers got to pick here. So what are we thinking for the Panthers? What's going through your mind when you're looking at this team? Because there's a lot of things to think about.
So my initial thought in my mock drafts, I was going quarterback. Okay. Thinking about it now, they just traded away a second-round pick for Sam Darnold. They should give him one more year. They signed him for next year, or his fifth-year option or whatever it was.
He's making $18 million now.
Yep. So I'm going to help out Sam Darnold, and I'm going to go Charles Cross.
Okay. And this is a team that definitely needs help on their offensive line as much. We saw McCaffrey go down with injuries. We saw that a lot of drop passes, a lot of bad throws. I think that another thing that a lot of people might not think about when they do go quarterback, I know that you had, I believe, Kenny Pickett at 6, which that was one of the things we varied so differently on, me not having him in the first round. I had Malik Willis go to them in my last mock, I'm pretty sure. But a thing to think about is Matt Rule's on the hot seat, and so is their GM. So drafting a quarterback to develop behind Sam Darnold might not be the thing to save their jobs. And unfortunately, that is the case in the NFLs. A lot of moves get made to save jobs instead of to save the franchise. So this might be a pick that might not be sexy, or maybe it's going to be something that is exciting, like a new receiver or something, but they're trying to keep their jobs. They're not necessarily trying to plan for 3 years in the future where Malik Willis or Pickett might affect. So I think you're right. You got to just do what you can with Darnold. Maybe look in the second round for a quarterback to develop, but I think it's the right move. Now here for the Giants, there's not really a surefire correct move. They kind of need any of these positions, and again, positional value, you can go pretty much anywhere. Interior linebacker, especially if Blake Martinez is cut, which a lot of people are thinking he's going to be, because he saves about $8 million. Guys like Nakobe Dean and Devin Lloyd can really lure that middle. If you don't believe in Daniel Jones, Malik Willis is sitting there for the taking. Going into Wink Martindale's system, he loves those corners, so you can get the best corner locked down in college in Amari Gardner, or get a guy in upside with Stingley. But for me, I got my positional value at offensive tackle. I'm here at pick 7, and I'm just looking at this team, and I'm tired of seeing this team not get offensive linemen. I'm going Tyler Linderbaum for them at 7. The reason they were in the Super Bowl those years was, yes, Eli Manning was playing great. Yeah, they had great weapons and a good run game, but when you look at it, a lot of times the team was not as solid as you think a Super Bowl winning team would be. But when you looked, what they did have was an offensive line, and a beastly one at that. So you have one in Andrew Thomas. You now have another one in Ike Ekwonu. You add another guy in Tyler Linderbaum, and then you have Shane Lemieux coming back, who was one of the best young run blockers in the game. That's 4 great offensive linemen there. That's a good enough line to where you can plug anybody at that right guard position and figure it out from on there, whether that's re-signing a Will Hernandez or a Billy Price, or it's going elsewhere. That just shores up 4 young offensive linemen. And we've seen teams flip. Colts were never really that great of a team, and then they started making picks. Ryan Kelly gets picked. You get, obviously, Quentin Nelson. They're one of the best lines in football. We see the Lions, couple of picks, one of the best lines in football. It can happen really quick as long as you just are okay being boring a couple years in the draft. I think the Giants need to be boring this year, fix the trenches, and I think the biggest thing is Joe Shane has come out and said, we're not trying to blow this roster up. We think this roster has talent. So let's not blow the roster up. Let's just build up that line and address that big issue, and let's let the players play. That's how I see it. And now the Falcons are here, and I think the Falcons are kind of similar to a lot of these teams where they don't necessarily have an identity right now. So what are you thinking for them?
So I'm gonna stick with I'm gonna go with my LSU corner, Derek Stingley, teaming him and AJ Terrell up. I think you said it, we texted about this. You said Derek Stingley would be the perfect CB2.
Perfect.
I feel like AJ Terrell and Derek Stingley paired up together on both the opposite side of the field, they're going to lock down the wide receivers. It's just a blue chip player. It's plug and play.
And I think what's awesome about that too is that Terrell really had a breakout year when a lot of people were worried he was going to be a bust after his first year, when coming into that last year, there was a COVID year. There wasn't no training camp. It was a late draft. It's kind of hard for all corner struggle coming in, but that was really bad situation. So to see how great Terrell is, even if Stingley needs to take some time to recover more or anything, if he's even 3/4 of what he was his freshman year, we're talking about a top 20 corner right away. That's how good of a corner he can be. So having that as just a deadly combo, especially for a young team, with a decent pass rush that they can address a little bit more too. But Grady Jarrett's nothing to not be scared of. I mean, that guy's a massive human being. They paid him to be that. So yeah, the Broncos are sitting here, and Stingley's definitely somebody that I think that they would be looking at. And I think that the hard thing is do we act like they have a veteran quarterback, or do we just look at it today, right now? And for me, I'm going to do what I think is the right thing. Is it's February 27th at 2 a.m. So I'm going to say, their team roster is what it is. I'm taking Malik Willis for them. This is a guy in an offense that is so young and so electric and has so many different weapons that getting a guy like Malik Willis to come here where they have a solid offensive line, they have 3 really good receivers in Patrick, Sutton, and Judy. They got 2 good tight ends in Alberto and Fant. And then you have Javonte Williams and possibly Melvin Gordon being brought back. That's an amazing offense for a guy that has not pro-ready label on him, which I hate the pro-ready thing, but this guy's all the talent in the world. If you're telling me he's going to be able to line up in that offense and have a safety blanket and have everything that he needs, those mistakes can happen and it won't necessarily hurt him all that much. So I think Malik Willis would be awesome. He fits the timeline with the rest of the team to where you'll just have a very young and talented team. And truthfully, I don't see a way that this team doesn't make the playoffs if they have that quarterback position figured out.
I think he steps into a perfect situation in Denver. Like, that's like the Pats situation, the 49ers situation with Trey Lance. I just think it's perfect for him.
Can't get better. A really solid defense, and then every situation figured out on offense besides the quarterback position. If there's a place for somebody who isn't necessarily ready for the NFL, those mistakes aren't. If you throw a bad ball, I'm gonna trust Jerry Jeudy and Sutton to still make a play on that ball. So, well, the Jets are here now, and you already have Evan Neal on that offensive line. There's definitely a lot of needs that they have listed here for you guys. So there's pretty much still anywhere you can go. This is telling you got somebody on the offense. Where are we going to go for pick 10?
I think the Jets will take Sauce Gardner if he's still on the board.
Forever locking that pick in?
Yep, locking that in.
So talk to me about it. Do you think you got the best corner, the best offensive lineman in the draft, or do you think that this is just a best available type of pick?
This is personally, I have Stingley number 1 just because of his potential for my cornerbacks, and then I have 2. I have Sauce Gardner at number 2. He reminds me of like Jalen Ramsey. I get Jalen Ramsey vibes from him. Just lockdown, has the length. He's not too heavy. He's 200 pounds maybe.
Yeah.
He's 6'3" though. Shut down that wide receiver 1.
Yeah, and he did not allow a touchdown at all ever.
That's absolutely nuts.
He still is not. I think I saw a thing where like the most yards he's ever allowed is like 37 or something.
Yeah.
And that was, I think, the playoffs. It's insane. And they said he came into it as a 160 pounder. So for him to be near 200 now, man, I mean, Gardner, I get the same vibes because he's not afraid to use that length to make plays on the ball, to make plays on the receiver. I don't think he has necessarily the motor and personality that Ramsey has. I think that's kind of a one-of-one trait. But Sauce can definitely be that number 1 guy, and especially when another guy that's going into a defense that has a guy in Bryce Hall that's already solidified himself to be a good corner, and then the young guys that were there too, Eccles, Carter. I mean, there's some young talent there, so I think Sauce is stepping into a good spot as well. But could he be that next Darrelle Revis that you guys have been searching for a long time?
I'm hoping so. I'm hoping so if we get him.
You gotta shoot for the big bucks.
Mm-hmm.
So the logo's not updated, but the Washington Commanders are picking at 11. And with Malik Willis off the board, I just don't see a quarterback that they would be taking here. I think their team is set up to get one of those veterans where it's whether it's a Mariota or a Winston or somebody to that effect. I just don't see a way Heineke's starting again next year. But this is a team that really can use a ton of different things. They're lacking weapons, but they also have drafted weapons. So are they trying to develop those guys, or do they want to go with their choice of any receiver that's on the board? They have young safeties, but also they're going to need to get rid of some like Collins and stuff to free up money. There's a lot of different things that they could do here. For me, I think what I want to do for them is I want to go to the offensive line and get them Kenyon Green out of A&M. Brandon Sheriff has just not played enough for them, and I don't see a way they're going to spend upwards of $15 million, $20 million on a guy who really hasn't played much. On top of that, Eric Flowers has a set cap hit at $10 million, whether they want to keep it or not. $10 million, like we said, is a lot of money. So for you to be able to cut Eric Flowers, who has played very well for them, but to be able to free up $10 million and replace that talent right away, I think that can do a lot more for your team, and you could spend that $10 million towards a quarterback or towards another weapon in free agency, because there's a very deep receiver class for free agency, and it's a deep receiver class in the draft too. So I think that where the draft might lack is that offensive line, where I think it's very top heavy compared to the other positions that I think are not top heavy. So go with that position of value. Realize that, hey, do I want to wait till the second round and maybe get an Ed Ingram or Kennard or somebody, or do I want to go and take the best available guard in Kenyon Green? I'm going with Kenyon Green.
Okay, for the Vikings pick, I'm gonna have them select Washington corner Trent McDuffie.
That's who I get them every single time. Talk to me about him.
I mean, I don't know much about Trent McDuffie. I've been reading about how he's a lockdown corner.
Yes.
And that the Raven, I've been seeing a lot of mock drafts of the Ravens trading up for him. That's what I've been seeing. But I know the Vikings need a corner really bad.
And what's crazy about McDuffie is that he's known as an undersized corner because he's not 6 foot. He's under 200 pounds. But the guy plays like he is Cam Chancellor in his prime. Like, he is not afraid to just absolutely help out on run support, hit anybody, which I think is a kind of a lost art for a lot of corners. A lot of corners go out there to play coverage and don't really worry about the tackling aspect. This is a guy who, specializes in that. And I think that's what has him as high as he is, because truth be told, watching Washington this year, a lot of people might say that Kyler Gordon was the better corner this year, but McDuffie's just so aggressive and so just, it's the same thing with Aiden Hutchinson. That motor is just unmatched to some things, where I'm trusting a guy who wants to be there as much as he is. McDuffie's going to be aggressive, and Minnesota's missed on a couple corner picks these past couple years. They really need to hit on one. I think this is one that they can hit on, definitely, for sure.
Does McDuffie transfer over to the NFL and become a slot corner, or is he going to stay on the outside?
I think he can literally play any position in the secondary. I wouldn't be surprised if they move him to the safety position. I wouldn't be surprised if he plays that nickel corner, but then when Harrison Smith retires, he moves to a strong safety role. Truth be told, I think that they just need DB help, and McDuffie, being as versatile as he is, I think that he truthfully can go anywhere, which is obviously an awesome move for them. For the Browns, I think that it's a pretty simple pick here. Yes, interior defensive lineman Jordan Davis is there, is awesome, but they've needed linebacker help for a while. They helped out with Koromoa last year, but in reality, they're still missing that interior help. And if there's a guy that in the interior that I like, it's Nakobe Dean. He's barely ranked higher than Devin Lloyd, but although undersized, the dude is just the most athletic man I've ever seen, like coming out at that size, at that position. I mean, he looks like a safety, but he's playing linebacker. And I think that's kind of the new age of linebacker in the NFL, where if you're able to run as fast as these running backs and these receivers, you're really going to be looked at as a top guy. And that's what him and Lloyd can do. But Nakobe Dean, being on that Georgia defense, I really do think he's ready to step into that role and just go and attack with it. So to be lined up behind Myles Garrett, Jadeveon Clowney and company, I think Nakobe Dean is going to set himself up for success right away. And now you have a good young duo of him and Koromoa. So I'm really a big fan of the Browns getting Nakobe Dean here. What do you think about that pick? What do you think for the Browns?
I mean, personally, I have Devin Lloyd higher just because of how much bigger he is. I'm not sure if he's the same speed or close, but I think Devin Lloyd's ceiling's a lot higher than Nakobe Dean's. But Nakobe Dean can be a blue chip player. Definitely. Come in and start day one and be the best linebacker in that room.
What do you think about the Browns, where a lot of people think they should go receiver?
I've been seeing, I've been reading about they're in love with Garrett Wilson.
Yes.
That's the player that they want. But I think if Nakobe Dean's on the board, you got to take Dean over Garrett Wilson.
My whole argument for it, and granted, I'm not in the rooms or anything, but as big of a need as receiver is, it it shouldn't have been a need when Odell was there, but it still was. It shouldn't be that Jarvis is there, but it still is. There's a big glaring thing that they don't use their receivers that much. So why spend the 13th pick on a receiver that you're not going to use as much as you're going to use Chubb and Hunt? Just trust your game plan, know that you're going to run the ball heavy, and don't be shy away. Say to the league, we're going to run the ball, try and stop us, because Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt is a pretty deadly duo to try and stop, and that's why they run over everybody every year. But Baltimore here, another team where just if they were picking 32, I wouldn't have been surprised. But somehow they're at pick 14, uh, which is wild to me. I don't even know where to start for this team. So I'm glad I don't have this pick. What are you thinking for them?
I'm going to have them pick George Karlaftis from Purdue. He's
Perfect.
my third best edge player or edge rusher in this class. He has the size, he has the strength. I know he's a pretty good bull rusher. I don't know about his technique and all that, but I think if he goes on that D line with who'd they draft last year?
Adafe Owe.
Adafe. Him and George Karlaftis can make a pretty good duo on that line.
Yeah, and I think a lot of their defensive linemen are questionable. How long is Calais Campbell going to play? Brandon Williams, is he going to come back? So it's definitely a need for Karlaftis. The only downside I ever see to a Karlaftis is just because he's not as big as a lot of edge rushers are. He's not as lengthy, which can sometimes pose a problem. But like we said, says it right here in the first sentence. He might be the best power rusher in this year's class. I mean, the guy just uses his strength. So although his arms might not be that long, when they connect, they connect. So Karlaftis is definitely somebody who it's going to be hard to see him fall out of the top 15. What's interesting about the Eagles here is that they got some back-to-back picks and they have another pick soon. So we're kind of working in a tandem here. So we both got to look at this and see what these next two picks are. So I think for me, the easy pick is that they look at a guy like Devin Lloyd, who is, in my opinion, obviously a top 10 player. I just don't see a way that they can let him fall any farther. And they've neglected linebacker for so long. I think that they just have to go with a guy like Devin Lloyd here.
Okay. I'm gonna stick with the defensive side.
Okay.
I'm gonna have them grab David Ojabo from Michigan
coming off the board too. So we got an edge and a linebacker coming off the board and revamping this defense. For me, I like it because the offense was clicking last year. It just wasn't able to get as much space as they wanted because they really only had Devontae Smith. Rager wasn't what they wanted. Watkins had a decent year, but this defense, man, they were running out there a lot with, Devin Singletary Alex Singleton. And just, there was a lot of guys that you're like, who is that again? Oh, okay. That's time to get rid of that. Let's get some talent on this defense that's going to be there and stapled as, Brandon Graham, Fletcher Cox aren't getting younger. And those guys that we've been throwing in there at all the positions, I think you just gotta let them, get back to their depth roles and get on the field as they earn it. But the Chargers are another team where the fact that they're not picking in the 20s is a pretty wild thought. What happens if they don't call that timeout? Beating a dead horse here, but the Chargers, for me, it's not even one of their top needs, but for me, wide receiver, I think, is their biggest need. They led the league in drops, I'm pretty sure, last year, or they were top 3 at least. And Mike Williams is a free agent. Whether they bring him back or not, I think that they need a receiver. And when I'm thinking about receivers that they could need, you have one of the best route running technicians in Keenan Allen, a top 10 receiver, in my opinion. If you do bring Mike Will back, he's a big body receiver. He's going to go up and get that deep ball. I just want to get somebody who I know can go out there and can consistently win his matchup. And that's Jameson Williams for me. For me, I might be alone in this, but ACL tears are not what they used to be. I'm not worried about Jameson Williams coming back from an ACL tear because players have come back stronger at this point. Adrian Peterson was the first one to do it, and since then, Joey Burrow comes back and now is in the Super Bowl after tearing every ligament in his knee. So it's not something that you need to be scared of as much as you used to be, where it's he has a tear in ACL. Is he ever going to play again? not only is he going to play, he's probably going to play week 1. He's probably going to play in the preseason. So it's a crazy recovery situation now with modern medicine where Jameson Williams is the best receiver in this class. And I don't think anyone questioned that until the injury. So for me, it's because the guy got hurt, I'm not going to value someone that is lesser talented because he was injured and the other guy wasn't. Because a lot of these guys have dealt with injuries. Drake London dealt with injuries. I'm not going to take a guy like that over Jameson Williams because he's the best talented player and he fits the system, I think, the best. Love me some Jameson Williams for the Chargers.
So do you think he comes in to the Chargers and has a slow start? He's going to miss all of training camp pretty much, right?
Projected, yeah. He's projected to miss pretty much the preseason training camp. For me, even if he misses all of that, I'm playing him over Jalen Guyton. You know, like that's just a simple fact. But when you see how much the Chargers were using Guyton and what's the other guy's name?
Joshua Palmer.
Yeah, Palmer, which first of all, exactly. That's the whole point. They're taking a receiver. But you're seeing how much they're using those guys. It's because Keenan and Mike Will can't do everything. When Mike Will slowed down, it really was Herbert had some really bad games. He had some great games, but he had some bad games. If Jalen Guyton was having a good year, imagine what Jameson Williams could do in that offense. And when you have a young quarterback that's probably top 5 already at his position, let's get him some weapons because I think Joe Burrow kind of proved that weapons are going to prevail in this league when you have a good young quarterback. You know, Herbert has arguably the best arm in football. You get him more weapons, that's only going to prove to be beneficial for him. So I see them going and signing some tight end in free agency, getting a receiver, you know, whether it's bringing Mike Williams back or not, and then getting a young guy in Jameson Williams who's going to learn from Keenan Allen, Mike Will, or whoever else it is, and just set up Herbert for the most success because that's what's going to get you the Super Bowl. But the Saints are pretty ugly right now. And again, not jealous of you having this pick. So out of everything that could happen for this team, you know, they just restructured Ramczyk and Thomas to free up some space. But where do you have them going?
I'm going to have them select Ole Miss quarterback Matt Corral.
Matt Corral coming off the board as the second quarterback. Why Matt Corral over the rest of these quarterbacks? You know, Pickett, Ritter, Howell, even Carson Strong has been getting some love just by some people.
I just think Matt Corral needs to develop a lot more. And I think if you throw him down in New Orleans, no one's really going to pay attention to them for the next upcoming seasons. But while he's down there, he's going to be able to develop and get out of that RPO type offense, which was his one knock coming out of college. And obviously his throwing technique, not throwing, but like his feet.
Yeah. I think what people are always worried about with Matt Corral is how much have we really seen of him because of how heavy Ole Miss is on RPOs and short passes and options. So, you know, when you see other guys like Ritter and Pickett and Howell really extend the ball down the field, we didn't see that as much of Corral, but something that Corral does that a lot of guys can't do but is really needed in the NFL is that dual threat ability. Sometimes he does it too much to a fault, but when you have a guy who's willing and able to run as much as he is, and you just need a new identity in New Orleans, and you need money, let's use that positional value technique and let's get a quarterback because that's going to save you a lot of money for these next couple of years, especially getting one at 18 and still being the second one on the board. I think any of these quarterbacks going here wouldn't be bad. I would love Desmond Ritter to go there, but that's a pretty big reach. He'll have to have a good combine for that, though. But now we're back to the Eagles already. That's how quick they're coming back. I think easily for me, I think they just need to get another weapon on offense. You address defense pretty well, and there's more to do, but Devontae Smith was not able to do much last year because he was really him and Dallas Goedert were the only ones getting covered. So I'm going to go ahead and get the big body receiver out of USC and Drake London. 6'5". He's compared to Mike Evans a lot, and I understand the comp. I don't think he's necessarily as broad. You know, he's definitely as tall, but I don't think Mike Evans is physically imposing. I don't really see that as Drake London, but he uses that size to his advantage, and he wins those 50-50 balls, where I think it'll free up a lot more of Devontae Smith and be able to unlock those capabilities for him. And for a guy in Jalen Hurts who's improved as a passer but still has a ways to go, you know, if that ball is thrown up and it's a 1v1 with Drake London in a corner, I'm putting my money on Drake London. So I really do think that that's going to help out their offense a ton. And I think Jalen Hurts would very much be happy to see somebody, another weapon coming into that offense.
So you have Drake London over Traylon Burks. I think Traylon Burks would be the right pick right there.
See, so I have, you can't see it now, obviously, but I literally have all four of the receivers ranked alongside each other because genuinely there's no wrong or right answer for how to rank those four. Burks, Wilson, London, and Williams, I think, are the top four. Olave is sometimes getting more looks than some of those guys as well. So I don't think there's necessarily a wrong answer. I just think that just ginormous amount of size and the productivity and everything, I think that it just does a lot more. Where Traylon Burks, as great as he is, Arkansas is not USC and it's not Ohio State and it's not Alabama. So you really got to trust that Traylon Burks is that dude. And as much as I love Traylon Burks, he was my wide receiver one for a long time. I just think play it safe and get somebody can complement Devonta Smith a little bit more because he's going to be that north and south guy. Traylon Burks, I think, can do a lot more, but he also could not be that. I think you just need, Jalen Reagor didn't work out, but Justin Jefferson definitely did. So I think you just need to get somebody who secured will be a good weapon. And I think Drake London can be that for them.
Okay. So Pittsburgh with pick 20. Are we assuming they get a quarterback because they are like a win now team?
I think we're just taking this as it's February 27th, and right now Mason Rudolph's their starter.
I'm going with quarterback Kenny Pickett.
Kenny Pickett keeping Pittsburgh in Pittsburgh.
Yep.
Do the hand size and the gloves worry you at all?
Not really. He's not a dual threat, but he's got legs on him. And he's got pretty good arm strength, so it's pretty accurate. I think it's a perfect fit.
Yeah, as long as he's able to, when this combine comes and he's going to get ridiculed for the hand size, as long as he's able to prove that he can do it without, I think that it'll be smart when he's throwing the drills. I think that it's smart if he takes the gloves off and proves to teams that he doesn't need the gloves. Because in the Senior Bowl, when it started to rain, he had to take those gloves off. It didn't look too pretty. So I think that he needs to prove to teams that I can play in any atmosphere. Because Pittsburgh, is it the worst weather state? No, but it gets some snow sometimes. It gets some rain sometimes. Those gloves aren't going to always be on. So that's definitely going to be interesting. Here for the Patriots, another team where I didn't think they were going to be as good as they are, but not only were they as good as they were, but it didn't really show too many weaknesses. They genuinely were just a very solid team. And so the first thing I think of is, how can we make this team even better? Do you just take the best available, which I have as Jordan Davis, just plug the interior, but Christian Barmore has done a lot for that. Do you get a guy like Trayvon Walker who can be on the opposite side of Judon? But then again, they have a lot of edge rushing help. There's no right or wrong answer. There's a lot of corners that I like as well. Andrew Booth is on the board. But for me, and how the board is fallen, I'm going to go get them a wide receiver, and I'm just going to go and get somebody who I know can just do everything the right way in Garrett Wilson. Because I think with what they've had, they've thrown a lot of darts at the wall, and Aguilar looked good. Jacoby Myers looked a lot better this season, and then Kendrick Bourne looked really solid. They hit on Hunter Henry, and Jonnu Smith's kind of still up in the air. But I'm just going to get a receiver who everyone knows, Garrett Wilson. Is he great at anything? Probably route running is his best ability. But other than that, he's just good. Like there's no weakness to his game. He's just solid. I think you need that ability because it was pretty much anyone's game this last season. Is it going to be Jacoby Myers scoring today? Or is it going to be Aguilar? Is it going to be Bourne? Who's going to do it? Mac Jones is a pocket passer. He's going to get the accurate throws. Get him a guy who's going to break those routes and have that trust right away. I think Garrett Wilson does that the best.
Agree. With the Raiders pick 22, I'm gonna have them take Traylon Burks, pair him up with Hunter Renfrow, give Derek Carr an elite target.
I think what was interesting about the Raiders this last season is when Darren Waller went out, Renfrow started to really come into his own. But then even when Waller came back, they didn't target Waller as much as they did early on in the season. But it was still weird because Carr was still throwing as much as he was. So where were those targets really going? Deshaun Jackson was getting looks.
Zay Jones
was getting looks. Zay Jones was getting looks. So yeah, it was another situation similar to the Patriots where they have guys and they all are producing at a higher level than they need. But when you get Traylon Burks, who has a lot of AJ Brown to his game, where he's big, he's strong, but he's also athletic. Yeah, that can be deadly alongside one of the biggest and athletic players in Darren Waller as well. So I love the pick as well. I mean, you gotta get some showtime in Vegas, right?
100%.
So for me, Cardinals are another team where it's surprising to see them as low as 23 when it looked like they were going to be in the 30s early on in the season. But when you lose out on DeAndre Hopkins, it's going to hurt, and it's going to hurt pretty bad. Um, there's a couple ways that the Cardinals can go here, but for me, I'm trying to think of what is going to be addressed in free agency, who's going to be kept, who's not going to be kept. And for me, as much as I love Trayvon Walker and I think that he should be off the board already, I'm going to give him Jermaine Johnson, the edge rusher out of Florida State. I don't see a way Chandler Jones gets re-signed. They've already had disputes, and that's a lot of money that they really should be spending elsewhere because edge is not necessarily their biggest need. And Chandler Jones didn't really finish the season off strong. He started off incredible. He had that 5-sack game, and he kind of slowed down after that. So to get Jermaine Johnson to go on the opposite side of J.J. Watt, I think that's just elite. Jermaine Johnson has shown he is so good. I mean, you're talking about a guy who played so well in the first 2 days of the Senior Bowl that he left because he didn't have anything else to prove. He transferred out of Georgia because of how great Georgia is, and we've seen, I mean, just right here, the top two players on the board are Georgia defensive front seven. And he goes to Florida State and still balls out. I mean, this is a guy who has all the talent in the world. He might rise up, and I've seen him all the way up in the top 10. So to get him here at 23 for the Cardinals, just getting more pressure, getting to the quarterbacks. I mean, you're in a division where it's going to have a young Trey Lance. You know, Matthew Stafford's going to be there, and Russell Wilson, as of now, is there. You need to get to the quarterback, and you need to disrupt their offenses. And I think that that's the best way to do it. Corner's another need, but I think with how many corners are in free agency this year, I just don't see a way that they don't sign at least one or two of them.
Okay. For the Cowboys pick 24. I see Andrew Booth is still on the board.
He is.
And I see Trayvon Walker still on the board.
He is also on the board.
Do I want to pair up Trayvon Walker with Micah Parsons on the D line? Because I know DeMarcus Lawrence is isn't he he's supposed to be like cut or traded or whatever
There's
this
talks about it,
offseason.
it would free up a lot of money. I think the interesting thing is Micah Parsons is supposed to be a linebacker, but they used him at edge. But because of how great he was on the edge, they might want to keep him there too, which it's enticing because Trayvon Walker can play interior or outside, where Jordan Davis is really locked into right over the center. But then again, you know, there's a lot of people in the secondary that aren't going to be there this next year. Diggs isn't known as the best man coverage guy, so a man coverage corner and Booth isn't bad. There's a lot of great picks here. I mean, at the same time, Connor Williams sucked for the Cowboys. So even offensive linemen that are here are interesting. So yeah, there's not a wrong pick for the Cowboys. It seems like every year the Cowboys get somebody to fall to them. So
They also need a safety very bad.
they do.
I know Daxton Hill is pretty good.
Yep, and they're losing out on Malik Hooker and Jaron Kearse are both hitting free agency, and they don't have money to spend, so they're probably not going to be able to bring them back.
So I'm going to have him go with Daxton Hill.
Daxton Hill, 24, a guy who people are saying can rival John Ross's record at the 40 time, which would be pretty insane. And I think what's cool about this pick too is that even though Jaron Kearse and Malik Hooker are free agents, Donovan Wilson has been one of the best safeties when he's on the field, but because he was buried beneath Jaron Kearse, who had a great year, now you have him at strong safety finally playing, and then Daxton Hill going in there at free safety. The secondary is finally getting addressed, and I think that they've just kind of neglected it for a long time. So this secondary is going to look even better with how good Micah Parsons is on that front seven too. So I love the pick. I think that it would be bold for Jerry to pull off a move like that, especially because there's other guys that might seem like better picks, but I think Daxton Hill does fit the perfect way. For me, this is a very easy pick for the Bills. I'm giving them Jordan Davis out of Georgia because they don't necessarily need defensive line play, but the Bills don't need anything. So that's kind of where everyone's just saying their biggest need is. I love Epineza. I love Rousseau off the edge. And then in the interior, Ed Oliver was one of my favorite prospects coming out. Harrison Phillips has been good. So Jordan Davis is a guy who has been falling on boards because people are like, oh, he's not going to be able to play every down. He's too big. He's just a run stopper. Like, yeah, and he's the best of it. I mean, we're talking about a guy who is rivaling Evan Neal for the biggest player in the class, you know? So, yeah, let's have that guy plug the middle. I don't care if you see him lining up and you're like, oh, they're doing a run defense. Yeah, I want you to know because he's going to get through. And I think that it's kind of an asinine take where people say, oh, he's just a run stopper. Like, like he can never get through and get a sack. That's just not the case. He's bigger and stronger than pretty much everybody that's going to be on the field. He's going to be able to get through and get some pressure to the quarterback. So I just think that helps out the Bills even more. And yeah, I just really like Jordan Davis going to them. But you got the Titans here. Titans have some interesting spots, a lot of free agents. Could pretty much go anywhere here. Where you got him going?
I have them take Clemson cornerback Andrew Booth, pair him up with Caleb Farley, and don't worry about it.
That's true. Caleb Farley, Christian Fulton, both young corners that have dealt with their senses of setbacks. I think you just keep throwing at the ball, and you might have a really good triple duo right there, trio of just absolutely locked down young corners. I was a big fan of Caleb Farley too. I didn't think the injury would affect him as much as it did, and it affected him a lot this last season. So hopefully that he's able to come back from that. For me here at 27, I just can't see Trevor Penning falling any farther. There's just no way. He's too good of a prospect. I've seen him go in the top 7. That's as high as I've seen him go. Tristan Wirfs is already the best right tackle in football. Move Trevor Penning over at the left side and replace Donovan Smith. And now you have one of the best young duos in the league, let alone probably the best tackles in the NFL at that point. Trevor Penning is that good, and I think that he deserves it. One of the things that people have loved from him in his Senior Bowl week and stuff is how aggressive he is beyond the play. After the play, you'll still see him pushing and shoving and talking and stuff like that. And some people get turned off to that. I think it's very welcome to a team like the Buccaneers who want that intensity from their players. So, yeah, that's just setting up whatever quarterback is going to succeed Brady with a good offensive line. And I think Trevor Penning's going to lock that up as well.
So pick 28, I have the Packers selecting Trayvon Walker.
Perfect. Where do you think Trayvon Walker ends up playing when he gets to the NFL? You think he's going to be on the outside? Do you think he's going to be inside? Do you think he's going to kind of move around?
I think he'll move around at first, but I think he'll play on the outside.
Gotcha.
Like ending up on the outside.
Yeah, and a lot of people are wondering, is Preston Smith going to stay? Is Zadarius Smith going to stay? Because they have a lot of money locked into them, and they need money, so they got to start moving some players around. So you got to pick like Trayvon Walker, and you already have Rashawn Gary. That's pretty deadly. Even if you hold on to one of those Smith brothers, you can keep Trayvon in the interior for a year and then move him to the outside after. So I think it's a great pick, no matter what. For here at the Dolphins pick, I mean, there's only one thing to do, and it's help this offensive line, because even though you've drafted so many offensive linemen, you got to keep doing it until something happens. And Zion Johnson is a monster. The guy is not oversized, so a lot of people are kind of turned off to him, but he went to the Senior Bowl and looked like the best offensive lineman there by far. He was working at center. He was staying after practice. I think Miami would be a great spot for him to go, and where pretty much every offensive line spot is open for the taking. They have Eichenberg at left tackle, but is he going to stay there? Austin Jackson's at left guard. Maybe he moves back to tackle. Zion Johnson could be their center, or he could be a guard. They have Kinley, they have Hunt. There's so many different guys. You're going to figure it out one of these times. But Tua, when he's healthy, the connection him and Waddle had was so much fun to watch that you need to protect Tua and let him get back to those Alabama days where he's not scared to move out of the pocket, where he's able to improvise, use his feet, and get the ball to such an insanely deadly weapon in Jalen Waddle. So I love Zion Johnson going there. And if not Zion Johnson, you take the next best available lineman, and you can address the other needs in free agency and otherwise.
Okay, for the Kansas City Chiefs, I'm going to have them snag Jahan Dotson from Penn State.
Jahan Dotson.
He's going to be the perfect wide receiver, too, in that offense.
Perfect. What makes you like Dotson more than a lot of these other guys that are up here? Chris
Olave is a little bit smaller. And I think they already have a small receiver in Tyreek Hill. You need the playmaker that can do a lot after the catch.
Definitely.
He's just a physical wide receiver. He reminds me a lot of Chris Godwin.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of comparisons such as that. And yeah, Kansas City's definitely been a team that have rode the coattails of Tyreek and Kelsey for a pretty long time. And I think that now you're seeing, Kelsey really is on the wrong side of 30 and Tyreek Hill's not too far away. I think it's time to start looking at, more weapons to make this a more complete offense. Luckily for the Bengals, there is still an offensive lineman available, and that's huge because they need offensive line help at any spot. And we're going to take the former tight end in Barnard Raymond out of Central Michigan. He went to Central Michigan as a tight end, bulked up, and became one of the best linemen in college football. And geez, is Joe Burrow going to be so happy that he's not going to get hit 9 times for sacks in the playoffs again. Just any way you can get. If it wasn't Bernard Raymond, I would go to Failele. I'd go to the interior, get a guy like Kennard or Sean Ryan. You just have to get. It doesn't matter if all the best linemen are taken and the next best guy isn't. For 30 more picks on your board, you still take him because you need to protect Joe Burrow. There's nowhere else you can go with this pick.
So with the 32nd pick, the final pick, I think the Lions, they didn't grab Jamar Chase last year. There's no Jamar Chase in this draft. Maybe Jameson Williams is close to him, but I haven't taken Chris Olave.
They need weapons, and that's the one to get. And we'll go back down to it too to talk about it. But I think the misconception about Jared Goff being a bad quarterback lies from them going into training camp with Tyrell Williams and Brashad Perriman as their 1-2. I don't think any quarterback is looking like a good quarterback with that offense. So Amon-Ra looked pretty solid, but doesn't seem like he's going to be wide receiver 1. So getting Olave and him, maybe signing another free agent, paying extra for one maybe.
Mike Williams. I could see Mike Williams going there.
Yeah, you get Mike Williams plus Olave and Amon-Ra. I bet you Jared Goff looks like a top 15 quarterback next year if he
100%
has weapons. Because you add that to Hawkinson, DeAndre Swift, and one of the best offensive lines in football. I completely agree. They need weapons. And they already have Aiden Hutchinson, so now you got a great offensive weapon and one of the best defensive prospects in it. So to recap really fast, we'll go through all of these, and then we'll let everyone know where to find you. Kayvon Thibodeau went 1, where Aiden Hutchinson goes next. Kyle Hamilton to the Texans at 3. Evan Neal and Ike Ekwonu back-to-back to the New York teams. Then we had Charles Cross, Tyler Linderbaum, Derek Stingley, Malik Willis leading Denver, and Sauce Gardner ending up at 10 to the Jets. Washington picks Kenyon Green, where McDuffie goes to the Vikings. Jacoby Dean, George Karlaftis, and then the Eagles with their back-to-back picks get Devin and David with Devin Lloyd and David Ajabo. Los Angeles Chargers take Jameson Williams, with the Saints getting their replacement to Drew Brees and Matt Corral. Drake London ending the 3 picks of the Eagles with Drake London. And the Pittsburgh Steelers ending up the top 20 with Kenny Pickett. Then we got the Patriots at 21 getting Garrett Wilson. Raiders taking Treylon Burks. Jermaine Johnson going to the desert. Daxton Hill leading that secondary of the Cowboys. And Jordan Davis plugging the interior for Buffalo. Tennessee's grabbing Andrew Booth to pair alongside their other young corners. Penning helping out Wirfs and protecting the next successor to Brady. Trayvon Walker to the Packers. Zion Johnson to the Dolphins. And Jahan Dotson to the Chiefs. Last but not least, the Bengals end up getting help for Burrow and Bernard Raymond. And Chris Olave rounding out the first round to Detroit. So Landon, appreciate you for coming on, doing the mock draft with me. We all know about the TikTok, and of course, all the links will be in the top of the description below. But let everyone else know where they can find Bando Sports.
On TikTok, Instagram, the @ is the Bando Sports. It's spelt how it sounds. You can check me out on there. We have Twitter, and YouTube is coming up right now. We haven't posted anything yet, but we're gonna have our podcast up there soon.
Got you. So be on the lookout for the podcast. And again, if you haven't seen, I'm sure you've seen one of their TikToks. They definitely have been popping off on there. You might not have known that it was Landon and Bando Sports, but definitely go check them out. And all the links will be at the top of the description. So Landon, again, thank you for coming on the channel and checking this out as well. Thank you for doing this with me. And of course, if you guys did enjoy the video, please be sure to leave it a like, subscribe down below. And if you didn't enjoy it, that's okay. Just refresh that page and let me know what you think the second time. And without further ado, that's going to be it for me and Landon. I'll see you guys in the next one.
Deuce, y'all.
On the clock, look at the timing, better don't stop. Let it go by, no, not on my watch. I do this here on my own time. Time is money, so I did it on my own dime. Word to Bookie, yeah, that's homage, gave me game. Yeah, he taught me family ties, quick to back then. It's up off me, now I can't wait for